What happens when country music's biggest star walks into what should be a routine morning show interview only to find himself in the middle of a media storm that nobody saw coming? Blake Shelton thought he was just stopping by Today with Jenna and Friends for a lighthearted chat about his latest album. But what unfolded was one of the most explosive celebrity interviews in recent memory. The tension was palpable from the moment he sat down, and by the end, viewers were witnessing something they had never seen before, a complete meltdown that left everyone stunned. The morning started like any other at the Today Show studios in New York City. Blake arrived wearing his signature cowboy hat and that familiar, easygoing smile that had made him one of country music's most recognizable faces. He was there to promote his new album and talk about upcoming tour dates, standard promotional fare he had done countless times before. Jenna Bush Hager greeted him warmly, smiling as she welcomed him to the couch alongside her co-hosts. Everything about the setup suggested a relaxed, friendly conversation. Blake adjusted his hat, leaned back comfortably, and thanked the hosts for having him. The early minutes unfolded exactly as planned. They talked about his new single, collaborations, and the evolution of country music. Blake was charming and witty, drawing laughs from the hosts and applause from the studio audience. It felt like a safe, predictable segment, until the tone suddenly shifted. Jenna leaned forward and casually introduced a new topic. She referenced comments Blake had made during a recent podcast interview about relationships, commitment, and how modern dating had changed. Blake remained calm, explaining that his words had been taken out of context. He spoke carefully, insisting he was only sharing personal observations, not criticizing anyone. But Jenna pressed further, repeating his remarks about social media damaging authentic romance. The studio quieted. Blake's expression tightened as the energy in the room subtly changed. When a co-host jumped in to suggest Blake was criticizing younger generations, his smile vanished completely. Blake clarified that valuing face-to-face conversation shouldn't be controversial. He stressed that he never attacked anyone. Yet Jenna continued, suggesting he implied older generations handled relationships better, then abruptly referenced his own history of divorce. That moment changed everything. Blake straightened in his chair, his face flushing as the atmosphere shifted from awkward to electric. What began as a friendly morning interview was now teetering on the edge of something far more intense, and there was no turning back. The mention of Blake's personal relationships landed like a punch to the chest. His voice dropped, controlled but sharp, as he questioned why his private life was suddenly being used as leverage. He reminded Jenna that he had come to discuss music, not to defend his past on live television. The studio audience sat frozen, sensing that the interview had crossed an invisible line. Jenna didn't retreat, maintaining steady eye contact. She argued that Blake himself had opened the door by making public comments about relationships. If he was willing to critique modern dating culture, she said, then scrutiny of his own experiences was fair. Blake pushed back hard, explaining that he had always been transparent about his mistakes and had never claimed to be perfect. What angered him wasn't the question, it was the tone and intent behind it. The co-hosts exchanged uneasy glances as Blake's frustration became impossible to ignore. This was no longer light morning television. Jenna insisted she wasn't attacking him, framing her questions as journalism. Blake scoffed at that explanation, accusing the show of chasing drama for ratings instead of respecting their guest. Suddenly, Blake stood up. His chair rolled backward as gasps rippled through the studio. Cameras zoomed in instinctively, capturing his flushed face and clenched jaw. He accused the show of inviting him under false pretenses, saying his team had been promised a standard promotional interview. A producer cautiously suggested a commercial break to cool things down, but Blake rejected the idea outright. He turned toward the production team, visibly furious, and questioned how a break could fix what he called a public ambush. Jenna countered again, repeating that the questions were legitimate and that viewers deserved answers. Blake's laughter turned bitter. He accused the show of interrogating him instead of honoring what he came to promote. Off camera, his publicist frantically tried to get the attention of producers, clearly desperate to stop the situation from spiraling further. The tension grew suffocating. Jenna leaned forward, insisting the topics were newsworthy. Blake fired back that nothing about the exchange felt honest or fair. The friendly tone that once defined the segment was completely gone, replaced by open hostility. As voices rose and composure cracked, it became clear that neither side was willing to back down. What had started as a disagreement was now a full-blown confrontation, unfolding live in front of millions, with no script, no safety net, and no easy escape. The argument escalated rapidly. Blake accused Jenna of twisting his words, while she insisted she was quoting him directly. She repeated his statements about technology and communication, clearly prepared and unwavering. The fact that she had his quotes memorized only fueled his anger. Blake admitted he stood by his words but rejected the idea that they were attacks on anyone. Jenna responded with a condescending calm, explaining that public opinions invite public challenge. Blake snapped back, accusing her of manipulation and narrative building rather than honest discussion. The other co-hosts sat silent, visibly uncomfortable, unsure how to intervene as the exchange intensified. Blake's face reddened further as he insisted he was being gaslit. Jenna dismissed the claim outright, waving it off and accusing him of pretending innocence. That dismissive gesture proved to be the breaking point. Blake's voice thundered through the studio, startling crew members and drawing shocked expressions from everyone present. He accused the show of deception, saying his reputation was being sacrificed for spectacle. The director hesitated, torn between cutting to commercial and letting the moment play out. This was live television history in the making, raw and uncontrollable. Jenna told Blake to calm down, calling his behavior inappropriate. Blake laughed bitterly, firing back that what was inappropriate was disguising personal attacks as accountability. Jenna finally snapped, her polished morning show persona cracking as she defended her role as a journalist. Blake stepped closer to the interview area, towering over the seated hosts. The tension reached a dangerous level. Security personnel subtly moved nearer, sensing that the situation could escalate even further. When Blake warned that Jenna was pushing him too far, the air turned heavy with alarm. Almost immediately, Blake seemed to realize the implications of his words. His expression shifted from fury to shock. He clarified he wasn't threatening anyone, only refusing to sit quietly while his character was questioned on national television. Jenna replied that the only thing damaging his reputation was what viewers were seeing unfold in real time. Her question, whether this was how he wanted America to remember the interview, cut through the chaos like a blade. That question stopped Blake cold. He looked around the studio, finally taking in the stunned crew, the silent audience, and the unblinking cameras capturing every second. His voice softened, shaking with emotion as he declared that America would remember this as an ambush, not a fair conversation. One co-host tried to intervene, suggesting everyone pause and reset, but Blake cut her off. There was no undoing what had already happened. The atmosphere remained tense, heavy with the realization that the interview had gone completely off the rails. Blake reiterated that he had come in good faith, expecting respect and professionalism. Instead, he felt cornered and misrepresented. Jenna stood her ground, insisting she had only asked questions rooted in his own words. The distance between their perspectives seemed impossible to bridge. The studio remained silent as both sides stared each other down. Producers whispered urgently off camera, deciding how to regain control. The segment was already beyond repair, and everyone knew it. As the cameras finally prepared to cut away, Blake took one last look at Jenna, his disappointment evident. The cowboy hat that once symbolized his easygoing charm now felt out of place amid the wreckage of the moment. When the show finally went to commercial, social media was already exploding. Clips spread instantly, debates ignited, and viewers took sides. Some defended Blake's right to express his opinions without personal attacks. Others praised Jenna for holding a public figure accountable. By the end of the day, the interview had become one of the most talked about moments in morning television history. What was meant to promote music had turned into a cautionary tale about live TV, media scrutiny, and how quickly a friendly conversation can spiral into chaos. And for Blake Shelton, that morning would be remembered, not for a new album or tour announcement, but for the day a routine interview became an unforgettable meltdown, broadcast live for the entire world to see.